Judaism does not oppress women. Unlike the feminist propaganda that keeps suggesting that the Jewish religion is misogynist and biased against women, a deep analysis of its true characteristics gives us an entirely different image as for how really women are treated by Jewish religion rules and guidelines, in compared to the Jewish males. As a matter of fact, there is much more evidence that these are Jewish men, who are enslaved, obligated, restricted and kept in the dark from any modern knowledge that can allow them to advance in their lives. Already at an early age, unlike the girls, ultra-Orthodox boys are being forced to learn and study almost only religious education, based on thousands-year-old outdated material, excluding mathematics, science, technology, foreign languages, literature, art and so on. Girls on the other hand, learn everything, and the universities and colleges in Israel are literally fully crowded with ultra-Orthodox female students. It is a fact that by the laws of Orthodox Judaism, that only men are obligated and forced to keep endless misvotes, religious directives, starting from waking up early in the morning, at 5 and sometimes at 4 a.m. to go pray at the synagogue, 3 times a day. In holidays or special occasions they can find themselves praying for most of the day, sometimes without eating or drinking. Although women do have some religious directives about praying and candle lighting, they can easily escape it without getting punished or being intimidated, that they would be prevented from going to heaven at afterlife. There is also the custom to circumcise 8-days-old male babies, called Brit Milah, a custom that in fact does not make any sense, because by Judaism rules, a person is declared a Jew as long as his mother is a Jew. Actually, the true purpose of the circumcision is actually to weaken the male sexual organ, and limit its sensual sensation in order to prevent and prohibit masturbation, as it is clearly declared by ancient Jewish wise men like the Rambam, in the 13th century. This custom is done so badly to every single male born in Israel, many times causing serious injury and irreversible damage to the boy's genitals. Sometimes there is even a risk of death because of infection or blood loss. In the last decade there were several very powerful and aggressive campaigns, dealing with the segregation by sex, that is very accepted and wanted both by men and women in ultra-Orthodox communities. Those campaigners, coming both from the radical left, international organizations like the New Israel Fund and the Reform Jewish Movement, manipulate the facts, and make the wide public believe as it is only directed against women, and done in order to exclude women from the public domain, by totally blurring the fact that in those communities, the segregation by sex is always symmetrical. New Jewish religious feminists even call it an apartheid against women, comparing it to the situation of the black people in the history of America and South Africa. As a matter of fact, there is no such a thing, space for men only, without the same equivalent for women only in all fields from midrashot, praying rooms, schools, gym rooms, social clubs, beaches and countless events and conferences preserved for women only, many times exceeding the amount of the space kept for men only. We know for a fact, an exemplary story about an old man, that accompanied his niece to such a women-only religious class, and was forced to wait outside, under heavy rain, for no less than 2 hours. One manipulation for example, targets the prohibition for Jewish males from listening to singing voice of females, describing it no less than hatred for women, while in reality, the religious rule says that by hearing singing female voice, man would get sexually aroused, because it is only men, who always must be tamed, under strict continuous control and supervision. A failure in doing so, will servilely punish only the male, but never the female, by God's wrath. In reality there are female singers in the ultra-Orthodox communities, but their audience always consists of women only. The same rule is true for religious men looking at women who are not their wives, only the men are obligated to keep their eyes, even when half or a quarter naked lady is passing nearby in the street. If the man fails to cover his eyes, by the rules of Judaism, God will punish him, not her. Never. This is actually how from a very young age, the boys are kept under control by fear, sanctions and punishments, under total psychological mind control, while girls are told they are more mature and wiser than the boys, have perfected souls and superior minds, that they are noble and royalty, and that nobody can ever force them to do anything without their own free will and conscience, coming deeply from their hearts. The IDF, Israel Defense Force, clearly discriminates against religious males, punishing them severely for demanding not to be forced into service mixed with women, or to listen to females singing in ceremonies, while it is in fact the military's rules itself, that allow and enable both males and females who are religious, to serve under strict segregation by sex. In practice, because of the influence and control by the feminist organizations, the media and many anti-religious political parties, only the religious female soldiers, are allowed to fulfill and get their religious sensitivity being recognized, and respected. The story about Jewish women, being oppressed and chained by dark and evil rules of marriage and divorce, and that the rabbinical courts, allow and permit husbands, to refuse to sign their wife's divorce certificate, called the get, is full of lies and half-truths, since the rabbinical courts can practically imprison a man for unlimited time, because of his refusal, and just like in the Dark Ages, he will not even be held in a normal prison cell, but in solitary confinement, until he agrees to sign, and set his wife free, so she can get married again, while all his obligations, as regards child support, alimony, and assets division, remain in place. There was actually only one case in the entire history of Israel, in which a woman was sent to prison for refusing to receive the get, but she was released immediately because of the protest and intervention of the media, the women's organizations and feminist politicians. The powerful coalition of thousands of feminist organizations and groups in Israel, that includes many religious women groups, manipulate and take advantage of very outdated and archaic religious rules to protect only women's rights and privileges, totally abolishing any obligations or sanctions that would be carried against women, who fail in their duties as mothers and faithful wives, as the rules originally intended. The best example for this controlled discrimination in favor of women, is a law called Hagil Harak, the tender years presumption, that is based on an old Jewish religious rule, and allows women to automatically get physical custody of their children, if they are under the age of 6. It is in fact only half of the original law, that in ancient history did reserve some rights for the fathers. Today this rule is applied to children at much higher ages, keeping the mothers as the sole custodial parent, and leaving the fathers only the obligation to financially support their children, even if the fathers are ill, physically or mentally disabled and cannot work or find a job. As for example, one judge said to an unemployed father in divorce, "I don't care how you get the money for child support, you can go sell an organ from your body." In Israel, the burden for paying alimony and child support falls solely on the men, and it exceeds the man's monthly income, sometimes by 100 or 200%, even in cases when the woman is working and earns much more money. The mother is never held legally responsible for taking care of any of her child's needs such as food, clothing, lodging, school bills and so on. All of this is because of ancient Jewish religious-based rules, that all the feminist organizations in Israel keep demanding should never be changed even slightly, while aggressively blocking any attempt even to question these laws. Keep in mind, the fact, that these are the exactly same feminists, who are always saying that Jewish religion discriminates against women,